Welcome to another reaction video. I'm going to be reacting today to Sam Harris talking with Ben Shapiro, and let's go.
It is just an inconvenient fact that slavery is endorsed in the Bible.
Let's stop right there. There's a difference between the Bible taking men as they come, which is fallen, sinful, and rebellious, and dealing with certain things that they've developed in their culture, like polygamy or slavery, and setting principles in motion that result in those things being phased out, and endorsing. All right, so that's the first thing.
Explicitly endorsed in the Old Testament, and it's certainly not repudiated in the New.
So in the Old Testament, the slavery that is incorporated into the law is a very different kind of slavery than you had in the Greco-Roman world. In the Greco-Roman world, slaves were simply chattel. They had virtually no rights at all. And in Hebrew slavery, if you go through the law of Moses carefully, you will see that slaves had rights, the slaves had legal protections. In many cases, the slavery was simply a glorified form of indentured servitude. It was slavery for a period of time, etc. So he's flying over this at 30,000 feet and not making necessary distinctions at all. In Greco-Roman slavery, in the New Testament, what you're dealing with is the Christian church entering into a society where slavery was ubiquitous everywhere, and the Christians were interacting with a very sinful institution as it was, and the logic of the New Testament in principle, overthrew all the presuppositions that slavery was grounded on by teaching, for example, that in Christ there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, that there was a profound equality before God, regardless of your ethnic background or your class status, slave or free, or your sex, male, female, and so on.
Right, and Jesus told slaves to serve their masters and to serve their Christian masters especially well. So,
Jesus didn't say that. Paul said that. Now, Jesus, what Paul teaches is consistent with what Jesus did. Jesus interacted, for example, with the institution of slavery when he healed the centurion slave and that kind of thing. But the teaching of Paul is in repeated places in 1 Timothy 6 and in Ephesians and Colossians. Paul is teaching slaves, Christian slaves, and Christian masters how to interact with one another, most famously in the book of Philemon, where he led Onesimus to the Lord. Onesimus was a runaway slave. Philemon was a friend of Paul's. Onesimus had run away from Philemon and presumably had done something like take the family silver or something. Paul comes across Onesimus, leads him to the Lord, and sends Onesimus back to Philemon with an exhortation to receive him as a brother. If you go through Philemon carefully, you will see the Apostle Paul planting all sorts of time bombs in there that overturn the anthropology that pagan slavery rests upon.
There's no place in the Bible where you can get a truly compelling case against slavery.
Well, so for example, even in the law of Moses, when a runaway slave shows up on your doorstep, you are prohibited from returning him to his master. When a runaway slave comes to you, the law of Moses forbade returning him to his master. Well, that would be just one example.
Because the creator of the universe clearly expected slavery to be a human institution. Well,
except for abolitionists finding enough inspiration in the Bible to use it as the main text.
But they did that despite what's in the Bible.
Well, yeah.
Yes and no. I would have something to say to both of them. There were radical abolitionists, particularly in the United States, before the war between the states, whose abolitionism was their driving motive, and they ignored a lot of what the Bible teaches. But there were abolitionists like the great evangelical hero William Wilberforce, who were motivated clearly by scriptural teaching. So Wilberforce would be an example of the right kind of abolitionism, and then John Brown, with his raid on Harper's Ferry, would be the kind of abolitionist who was departing from the Bible. So Sam Harris would be right about John Brown, Ben Shapiro would be right about Wilberforce.
I think that is, I mean, I don't want to. This shouldn't sound insulting because it's not meant as an insult. I think that from a religious point of view, that's a simplistic reading of the Bible's role in human affairs. Meaning that when any written document,
go Ben Shapiro,
is given to any group of people, it has to be given to people in a way that they can understand. It's not that slavery was endorsed by the Bible. It's that slavery is universal among human civilization. And
let me stop right there. Ben Shapiro is exactly right. Slavery has been universal throughout all human history. In the Middle East, it wasn't outlawed until the 1960s in certain Muslim countries, and it's still practiced today in various places. So he's exactly right that slavery is universal. European civilization, Europe and America, had a convulsive reaction against slavery in the 19th century. We fought a war, not entirely over it, but in part over the issue of slavery. And Western European civilization outlawed slavery. After Wilberforce was effective in getting the slave trade outlawed in England, the British Empire used their naval might as a way of suppressing the slave trade all over the globe. Now, after Western European civilizations outlawed slavery for the first time massively, the first time on that scale in all of human history, who gets blamed for the practice of slavery as though it were a unique invention of Western European civilization? You guessed right. The people who first outlawed it, who first put a stop to it, are the ones who are blamed for inventing it.
Modern times.
But it was no. There were religions that have different points of view on all these questions, right? So it was possible in the 5th century BC to have a take on ethics with respect to something like slavery, or the killing of combatants or non-combatants, that was quite a bit more modern and ethical and civilized.
Yeah, name one. Golly.
Than is found in the Bible. So I mean, you might not like some of their other commitments, but take something like Jainism, right? I mean, Jainism, Gandhi got his nonviolence from Jainism. I mean, Jainism is just, in truth, a religion of peace, unlike.
Yeah, but they don't want to step on a bug. Okay.
Islam, which is the word peace is a euphemism for the word surrender there, or submission. So it's possible for people 2,500 years ago to wake up one day and even write a book which suggests don't harm anyone or anything, even a cricket.
Right. Well, that's fine.
So much for the Jainists, but what about the atheist? Where is he going to get his arbitrary ethic? Don't harm anyone or anything, or don't enslave anyone or anything. How is that produced? I can see how a pantheistic reverence for all life would be consistent with reverencing all life, but how would materialistic atheism get to that conclusion? How would Sam Harris do something more than point to Jainism? How would he, using his premises, derive opposition to slavery? Why would Sam Harris object to it? Given his premises, we are all meat, bones, and protoplasm. Why should not some bits of that protoplasm enslave other bits of that protoplasm? Because 150 years from now, we're all dead.